Why? Because we have an approach about behavioral science that we feel that, I'm not saying that the field should disappear, but that the field should blend with all the other fields that belong with a company. So what do I mean? Data scientists in a company need to become behavioral data scientists. UX researchers need to become behavioral UX researchers. Marketing people need to become behavioral marketers.
That's Gonzalo Camiña, the founder and leader of a Spanish-based behavioral science consultancy called BeWay. And he's expressing a sentiment that is not new, but is growing. The idea is that behavioral science can be a lens through which nearly every human-centric discipline in a corporation can be viewed.
Behavioral science can also bring tools to each of these fields, tools that enhance the processes and results that those fields achieve by applying a behavioral science lens to them. Marketing, data science, human resources, compliance, ethics, innovation, product development could go on and on and on. Many elements of an organization can benefit from the tools that behavioral science has available.
We wanted to have a conversation with Gonzalo about the work that he's doing with clients in Spain and in Mexico, and how he's helping them with both behavioral science lens and behavioral science tools. So we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Welcome to Behavioral Groups, the podcast that explores our human condition. I'm Kurt Nelson.
And I'm Tim Houlihan. Kurt and I have been applying behavioral science lenses and tools to corporate functions for 25 years. Kurt's work in communication and design of incentive plans is deeply rooted in behavioral science. And my work, mostly recently in financial services, has found applications of behavioral science in departments as far-flung as data science, budgeting, marketing, even employee incentives.
And that's good news for groovers who are interested in applying behavioral science to their work. You can find an application just about anywhere there are people involved in this kind of stuff. In our conversation with Gonzalo, we got his insights into using random control trials or RCTs in corporate settings to prove the effectiveness of a particular solution. And we got into how anxiety and burnout are apparently becoming more prevalent in the workplace and what leaders can do in order to offset that.
We also covered an interesting topic that doesn't get a lot of attention, and it's called eudaimonia. It's an ancient Greek word that relates to the combination of happiness and general well-being or flourishing. It literally means a good spirit.
It's basically like being in your groove. And Gonzalo wrote about how important it is for leaders to adopt this approach. He calls it eudaimonic leadership. And I hopefully didn't mess up that
I think you got that one.
I got that? Yeah.
Nicely done. Eudaimonic leadership.
For me. That's I'm getting better, Tim. I'm getting better. There we go. Basically, he wrote that happy leaders are better leaders and that they set the tone for the whole company. Now that I can say and I agree with because it's a damn cool concept.
It's very cool. We also got into a really interesting discussion with Gonzalo about finding his groove. Now, we weren't sure if the idea would translate to him, this idea of finding your groove would translate to Spanish, but it did. And that led to a really interesting discussion about how Gonzalo sees himself in his work. We definitely got a peek into his more philosophical side.
Always puts a smile on your face, doesn't it, Tim? Yeah. You love that philosophical stuff.
I do.
Stuff instead of the other S word. There we go.
I do.
Well, at any rate, it's a very cool conversation, and we are excited to share it with you, our listener.
So I couldn't agree more, Kurt. And with that, groovers, we invite you to get into a comfortable position and sit back, relax with a steaming hot cup of applied behavioral science, and enjoy our conversation with Gonzalo Camiña. Gonzalo Camiña, welcome to Behavioral Grooves.
Thank you very much. It is such an honor to be here.
We are so happy to have you here. And we're going to start with a speed round, of course. And we would like to know, first and foremost, do you prefer jamón ibérico or prosciutto?
Do I need to answer? I mean, that's not even a contest. Clearly, jamón ibérico.
Yeah.
Not even a contest.
No,
my God.
It is not comparable. Yeah. It is not the same thing. I don't know.
It's not.
Like comparing Real Madrid and Napoli. I don't know. No, not the same.
Oh man, that's a very different thing. All right. Well, we're gonna regress and go to the second one, which is our standard coffee or tea.
I was going to prepare this answer, but I didn't know how. I think it depends. It depends with whom I am in that moment. And yeah, that sometimes I rather have a tea because I don't know, I'm with my mother and my sister and we are having some pasta. We haven't done it in a while, but I used to do it. And we will have tea with some cookies. But some other moments, because I am more in, I don't know, with some clients having a coffee in Starbucks, I prefer having coffee. So I think it depends on the moment and with whom I am.
It depends on the context.
Yes, correct.
Very cool.
That's the best. Well, maybe not the best, but it's absolutely the most interesting answer we've ever heard to that question. Yeah, really, that's very cool. Okay. All right. So third question, is humanistic management the best way to manage teams of people?
Again, I think it also depends on the context. I think for most of the companies that we see in the world, it would be a humanistic way, or as we will see, an eudaimonic way. Yes, I do believe it's that one. But then I think in other contexts in which you need to make some type of decisions, it might not be the best way. Like, I don't know, in the military, for example, I don't see that approach.
Perfect. Yeah, really good point. And kind of thinking, again, context matters and the environment and a variety of other factors that go into that. So, all right, it's a speed round though. Need to keep moving. All right. And you've listened to the show before. You know, sometimes our speed rounds go much longer than they should. So trying to be better. Trying to be better.
All good.
All right. Last speed round question. Is it true that global companies would perform better if they adopted a behavioral science lens for nearly every discipline in their company?
100%, yes.
See, that's not context dependent, right? That is exactly 100% yes. So let's talk about that a little bit, because I think that's a really interesting piece, because we work with, both Tim and I have worked with lots of different organizations, consulting in a variety of other factors, Tim being internal in some and me kind of being just, consultant all the time. But this idea of taking a behavioral science lens to those different departments, I think for many leaders within organizations, they don't understand why. What's the benefit for that?
Okay, so the way I see it is I've always start since, I don't know, maybe a couple of months or 3 months, all my selling meetings, the first meetings that I get to have with a potential client, with the following, let's say, lines. I ask them, what does your company do? And they can tell me, where do we sell things on a store, or we sell financial products? And I say, okay, but what does that mean? Well, we connect with people through a web and we try to sell them a product through a web. Okay, but what does that mean? And at the end, through this process, we get to the fact that what they are trying to do is they are trying to make a behavior happen. They are trying to get people to make a behavior that at the end is buying something, pressing a button to buy something, or paying some money to get some product or service. And when we are here, I ask them something else, which is, okay, who are the people that understand behavior, that are studying those relevant factors that actually tell you how people behave? Well, psychologists, sociologists, anthropologists, philosophers, economists, and many others. Okay, how many of those people do you have building those paths for people to buy in your company? And they say, well, almost zero, and not a lot of them. And I say, okay, that's why you need behavioral science in your organization. And I say, that's why we need us, because we are the consulting firm.
Okay, so I can understand that in human resource. I can understand it in sales, advertising, marketing, but engineering. Do you need those in engineering? Do you need those in corporate technology? Legal? Are those pieces that need to be included? And what? And again, I have my own tendency. I would probably agree with you, but I want to hear from you what that means.
I think so, because at the end of the day, when there are humans in the equation that they need to make behaviors, we are going to have to understand why they have to make them. So when you are building a process, an internal process, you're going to need to understand what type of person is going to be using whatever methodology or whatever tool that you need to put on them, and what are their psychological profile, what are their psychographic profile, how is their day, where are they performing that behavior. If you don't know all these things, most likely that process is not going to work as well that if you knew them and you put them in the process of actually designing it.
Why do you think this is so rare for companies to have psychologists, philosophers, sociologists doing the work of persuading their customers to make purchases?
In that exact case, I think companies are a little bit hostage of marketing departments many times. They are departments that have a lot of budget in big companies, huge budgets, millions of euros. They are able to do things with quite a lot of their own understanding of things. So they have a lot of freedom, and they don't have that many KPIs associated with them. So it is hard to get in there. When you study marketing, you do the process of studying marketing, you go to university, you do the degree, and then you enter in an organization to put there your knowledge. And then you try to have other people coming from other areas telling you how to do marketing and trying to put KPIs on you when you are able to spend the money as you want and generate campaigns as you want, and no one is telling you, no, because this didn't generate this. That's what we find a lot in the companies that we work with. But at the same time, I think that they are getting more and more open because they are starting to understand that they are getting measured more and more. So companies are moving more towards measuring them. So it's getting easier to come in. But I'm sure there is a lot of many other things that I've never thought about it that much. But that's a big one that we see every day.
Let's turn to some examples of how you are applying behavioral science in your work. You had a great case study about a bank that was using behavioral science to help recover money that customers owed them, right?
Yeah.
First of all, what was how big of a problem was that for the bank? And then how did you go about solving it?
So, and this is a particular case with BeWay Mexico that we work with them in Mexico. And it is a problem that is in the tens of millions of euros a year of money that they are not able to recover. And why do I say this? Because with our intervention, we generated 11 million euros of extra recovery in the year that we did it. And
Wow.
How did we do it? They have a process in which they use calls to try to recover the money, right? Through different partners that they have. And in Mexico, it's not anymore like that, but it tended to be really aggressive the way they try to do it.
The aggressive being the tone of the calls that were being made by these partners to the customers. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. And how the framing was done, right? And we did an analysis. We studied through a behavioral intervention, and we understood a few of the reasons why people didn't pay. And many times it's not the fact that they don't want to pay. Many times it's the fact that they see that it's a huge problem, that they are not going to be able to pay it soon, that they are not going to be able to pay the whole amount. So what we try to do is to figure out how changing the way people call, they will become more a little bit of psychologists, right, of these people, and offering them better options, trying to understand better and tell them, start paying a little bit, and we will see where it gets you. And with that change, which of course implied some education to this type of people, implied a lot. Imagine all the moving parts of this type of situation and the way it works. And after that, we generated a huge change. This was an RCT with with the control group doing the same, the other group doing something different in the way we design it. And yeah, the impact was huge. We didn't expect such a big impact, but if you see the graph, it's really beautiful.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about the RCT process, particularly inside of an organization? And again, I'll just preface this with the fact that when I've worked with organizations and I propose putting in a control and doing multitudes of studies, I often get pushback because they want the result now. And you guys are the experts. You don't need to do that. You should just be able to come in and tell us exactly what it is that we need to do. So how did you convince the leadership within the organization to do your RCT? And then how did you set that up in order to really get the maximum out of that?
The reality is that this particular company, BeWay, was already doing experimentation.
Okay.
They had an optimization team. So they were doing A/Bs all the time. Which it was way easier then to start doing A/Bs with the knowledge of behavioral science. It is true that the fact that we started doing behavioral science with them at the beginning was tough because, again, All the teams want to do the things as they are doing it, status quo, maintaining the way it's done. And we had to enter and change a lot the way to be able to do it, let's say, more rigorously and in the way we wanted to do it. No, so we need to build that path. We needed to build that road. And we had one of my teammates, Daniel Naranjo, which his main objective was becoming really, really good friends with this team, making sure that with also Natalia, which is an internal person from BeWay, they had to become friends and make sure that they got their piece and they enter in that team, and they were able to build a road and then start doing RCTs at scale, because we've done in 2 years 300 behavioral driven RCTs in BBVA Mexico, which has given over 100 million extra economical impact in these 2 years.
That's massive.
Yeah.
That is massive to do 300 random control tests in a year.
In 2 years.
That is, it's amazing. Oh, in 2 years, excuse me.
Oh, that is not bad at all.
Yeah.
That's nothing. No,
anybody can do 300.
That's amazing. I mean, that's huge.
So let's get back to this particular case. Can you tell us a little bit about the kinds of interventions that you created? The different and these were scripts, right? You were writing different scripts for the people who were calling to talk to the customers, to encourage them. First of all, how many interventions were there? And over what period of time did you test these interventions?
In which sense, how many interventions? Because it was one intervention, I think.
Oh, it was one. Okay.
Yeah. It was one intervention.
It was one approach.
Yeah. It was one intervention that after it was a control group versus the treatment group. And after that, when we figured out that it was already statistically significant and a winner, we just changed for many other companies that were calling, and we measured the whole year. And the type of things that we did is, as I was saying before, we tried to drop the level of aggressiveness in the calls. So instead of I'm here to ask you for money, it was not exactly the script that we gave them, but guidelines, in the sense of you need to understand why they are not giving the money. You need to start to building empathy with them, to build trust, to try not for them to see you as someone that wants to get your money, but that you are a partner with them on this, and that you are trying to get the money from them. And this is that you're not only trying to get the money from them, but building financial health. And this is really important, because you may think, no, but you're taking their money. You are not building financial health. You are actually decreasing their financial health. But it's not true. Why? Because financial health is not only the objective financial health of how much money you have. It's also the subjective financial health of how well do you feel about your finances. And when you owe money in big amounts, especially, you feel bad about your finances. So we are helping people by being able to drop that debt, right, when they are repaying. So there was all these mechanisms of building trust, of building confidence, of building empathy that will allow the person to feel closer and to start telling the real problems. So we could be a little bit more personalized in the way we were recovering the money.
Oh, I love that. So help us understand, Gonzalo, a little bit about the behavioral science in this. So I understand the A/B testing, ACT with control group, various different things, but it sounds like, all right, that's great. They're already doing this. What were the behavioral science principles that you brought in to apply in this situation?
The principal thing that we do, or the main thing that we've done, is the methodology. It is not about let's get a problem and let's find a nudge, or let's find a behavioral model that we can use, or let's use COMB, or no, self-determination theory, or no, let's use this social norm or this framing. No, because there's no method on that. So anyone can do it. What we work with BBVA a lot is on a methodology that we can use to replicate that. If you learn it and you are a behavioral scientist, designer, architect, you have a role on it. It can have different names as steps, but more or less is you start with an objective, a behavioral objective. You move towards a mapping of touch points. So all the points that the company has with the agent that they want to change the behavior of. We move to the prioritization of the touch points. So which touch points are better? Well, there are going to be many variables that are going to tell you, like, for example, what is the conversion rate of that particular touch point? How many people go through that touch point? how improvable it is already. Those type of variables are going to tell you in which touch point you're going to start working. Then you move to the identification of relevant factors. You move towards that touch point that you decided to work on, and you start to study the relevant factors. And how do you do it? You do a primary investigation. You start working with some behavioral model. Maybe you do BMAP, I don't know, whatever. Once you do that, you have already generated some behavioral insights, right? You understand some barriers, some levers, why those micro behaviors that you need to happen are happening or not. And then you move towards generating the solution. You start working with more behavioral architects, designers to conceptualize solutions that will fix those barriers or leverage those leverage. And after that, you generate the final solutions. You move towards experimentation. So you design the experiment and then you scale it or not. There is a step in the middle between the primary investigation and conceptualizing that solution, which is what we call the part of state of the art, in which we do more secondary or desk research, right? We start going to what past solutions have we built on this, what other companies have done on this, what papers in universities have been written on this. So the most important thing for me is the methodology that you use to be able to get to that final solution and not just jump to solution making from like the objective. I think that's the most important part.
I think it's fascinating. And I'm curious as to how you came to this. This really isn't, I don't know how central this is, but I'm curious as to what got you interested in applying behavioral science in corporate worlds.
Okay. So I think that I've always loved human behavior through my whole life. I'm the type of person that when it's having dinner with someone, it's listening to the conversation that the next table is having and like thinking like, okay, so why are they upset? And I don't know, talking with my partner, with Lucy, like, I would love to know why they're upset. I think it's because of this. And I don't know if it's a girlfriend or the sister or I love doing that. And she actually sometimes gets upset with me because she says, look, I'm here. I'm here. I'm important as
Focus.
Well. Yes, yeah. Focus on this. And then, of course, more in a serious note, the first time I came in contact with behavioral science, I came in contact through behavioral finance. I'm an economics major and also a business major. And I was studying, I don't know if you know this Chartered Financial Analyst exam, the CFA. And in the CFA, Pompian has written a lot about behavioral finance. And when you read those books, it's like, oh my God, finally, someone trying to think about the human behavioral in the financial setting without thinking they are perfect and thinking that they are just maximizing the expected utility and thinking that they have all the knowledge and all the possible knowledge that there is and all the memory and all the brain power. And I started feeling like, oh, this interests me a lot. But the financial part was interesting me more. So I kept on going through that route until I got into the trading world. I working in a couple of financial companies and I decided that world was not for me. And I came back to behavioral science because I felt like I need to help people to manage better their finance because it's not that complex, I feel. It's just a psychological problem. And that's when around 2014, 15, I made the leap of, this is what we have to think about. How do we figure out ways that people understand that, or not understand, but that people start saving for the future and investing for the future because it's something really complex because of all those things as present bias and status quo and many others, right? Many other biases that prevent us to have those type of behaviors.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love that, economics, the CFA, general curiosity about the human condition. I think that that's a fantastic combination. So if our groovers are listening to this episode, they might say, well, how do I get into behavioral science? What are the skills that you hire for? What are the things that you look for in people to bring into your firm to apply behavioral science? Are they all psychology PhDs?
Definitely not. And definitely not.
Yeah.
Definitely not. We have an approach. No, I'm sorry. Some of them are, but not all of them. Why? Because we have an approach about behavioral science that we feel that, I'm not saying that the field should disappear, but that the field should blend with all the other fields that belong with a company. So what do I mean? Data scientists in a company need to become behavioral data scientists. UX researchers need to become behavioral UX researchers. Marketing people need to become behavioral marketers. For us, it's a matter of building the capabilities that behavioral science gives you in order to be able to do your job better in what we think companies should be or should become is behavioral interventions factories, right? That's what we think companies should be.
Oh.
Behavioral intervention factories. Why? Because most of what they do is trying to change behavior. So anything.
Behavior, right?
Yeah, yes. So, okay, let's become behavioral intervention factories. And in order to do that, you need many, many profiles, the ones that you already have in the company. But they need to have that behavioral upskilling in order to be able to be a piece on that puzzle. So when people say behavioral science is a lens or behavioral science is a tool, for us, behavioral science is a toolkit in which you put the tools of the behavioral science part and your own tools, and also not the recipe, but the instructions to use those tools. That is what behavioral science is for us. The tools and the instructions to be used. So coming back to the original question, for us, we hire from all those type of skills. So we have data scientists, we have researchers, we have economists, philosophers, psychologists, sociologists, PhDs, non-PhDs. I don't feel like PhD is something that puts you in a different state of. In some cases, yes, but for me, it's more like an ID to be able to do research. No, it's like you get your ID to do research in the world, and they are going to recognize you as a researcher. Great. But sometimes I have non-PhDs that are way more knowledgeable about human behavior than a psychologist PhD, because they've done it their whole lives, because their intuition is better, because they have read many books and they have other type of education that has put them in this position. So we try not to be that picky about those things. We have PhDs, yes, but it's not the only type of a skill that we have.
So Gonzalo, what would you recommend? So we often get people reaching out to us, oftentimes who are in a master's program around behavioral science, and they're getting to the end and they're looking for a job, right? And it's like they're going, how do I, there aren't that many behavioral science organization or departments within organizations. So they're going, how do we do this in different pieces? What would you recommend that those people who are listening, who might be, getting a master's degree in behavioral science, or maybe even an undergrad in behavioral economics, or one of those, not necessarily, a PhD in psychology, but they're thinking they're interested in the behavioral science side. Obviously, they're really fascinated by it. But how can they make themselves more marketable or more hireable for organizations?
I think we are in a great moment for this type of profile, because I do feel like companies are looking for this type of profile more and more. And if I know it's a quite lame advice, but go on LinkedIn, start typing behavioral science, and look at how many people within companies are already behavioral scientists. And I will type that, get all of the names of the companies that are that have behavioral scientists, or that are posting something about behavioral science or behavioral design or behavioral data science or anything related, and contact them. Contact every single one of them until you get an answer. I mean, that's how we have gotten, we moved to the other side. We've grown from 3 to 112 people within 2 years and a half in the company without posting a single job offer.
Wow.
So it's all network. So if you are not contacting the people that we have in my company, you are not getting to know that we need people. And why have we done it like this? Because it's so much more efficient to get real good talent like this. Because people that are good are bringing people that are good. And if not, if I open right now positions and I'm bringing 5 people a month, and I have to have, I don't know, maybe we need to interview 5 people for every position. Imagine that we needed to interview 30 people for each position, which is, I don't think it's that abnormal. It's actually nice.
No.
It would be impossible to grow at this rate. We will be completely swamped.
I will tell you that Tim and I, in the last year, we had to bring in a new producer. And so we put an ad out and had over what was it?
612 responses.
612, applications. We narrowed that down. We interviewed 20 plus people. 50 people. Okay. Yeah. Wow. So anyway, I get that. I understand that. It's like, that was too much. We needed a better process. We did not learn from you. We should have had a conversation with you and
we didn't
said,
learn.
We're just going to go out and
it just happened naturally for us. It was, we started, we got really lucky at the beginning. The people that got into the company at the beginning were quite known especially in the Hispanic speaking countries. Mm-hmm. So that produced like a call effect. And we were figuring out that at some point we're going to need to put job offers. And we had job offers made at the beginning, but up to now we haven't. And we are continuously getting people trying to get in. So that's what I'm saying. Like for us, in our particular case, you need to be really proactive into finding the companies that are out there doing behavioral science and making sure you're contacting the people that are there and showing yourself. So then these people tell the company, hey, I have someone that wants to join, because that's exactly how it's happening.
So in the speed round, we talked about humanistic management and this idea. First off, for our listeners, can you define what you mean by humanistic management? And then we'll ask a further question beyond that.
Yes. So for us, we take, I think, a leap from humanistic management to a concept that we have coined as eudaimonic leadership, let's say. I think the first moments in which I started thinking about this were already in university. I did a project for an honors class in which I had to read a lot of books about a lot of people like Adam Smith, like Theory of Moral Sentiment, Marx, Veblen, Friedman, Keynes, all these people. But to study success, to study what a good definition of success was. And in these studies, I figured out that happiness was a great definition for success. And especially a happiness based on virtue, on living a virtuous life, which is arete for Aristotle, right? So I don't know how long ago I came up with to this concept of eudaimonia, which at the end of the day is the definition of happiness that Aristotle gave, using arete as the way towards it. So living a life that is making you be the best version of yourself. And I don't know why I have always had this in my mind, I guess. And once I started building the company, I figured out that what I wanted is people to be happy. And this is maybe a little bit unpopular to say, but for us, the most important thing is not the client. It cannot be. The most important thing, it has to be the people that are inside of the company. Because if they are not happy and they are not being the best version of themselves, the client is not going to get the best version of themselves, and the client is not going to be happy. So focusing on the client, I don't see it that great as the first derivative. Yes, the second one, but the first one has to be focusing on that your people are happy. And if you look at the companies around the world, I mean, you can tell me, but I don't think it's like that. At least in my personal opinion, I don't think companies are focusing on having people happy. They are working on well-being or on making sure they have good environments, but they don't take a holistic approach to it. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, and how I think you're right that we see a lot of organizations focused on employee engagement. You know, this idea of engaging the employee for the purpose of working harder and giving more to the company, rather than being happy. And yet we know that happiness is a precursor to high productivity, that the most productive employees are also the happiest. But at the same time, I'm kind of curious as to, again, why do you think companies are missing this? Why not focus on happiness and eudaimonia?
I guess it's status quo, right? Things have worked this way up to now. I mean, why would you change things in a bank when they are making money? Their shareholders are happy. What happens that right now, I think you can get a really good competitive advantage if you focus on happiness. If you focus in trying to make people be the best version of themselves. And it's complex. It is really complex because many people don't actually know what is the best version of themselves. They don't actually know what they really love. They don't know what are those behaviors that keep them close to what gives them intrinsic peace and intrinsic motivation. So you need to make an effort of first trying to hire people that are in line with your mission and your purpose as a company, that their vision, their mission, their own values are in line with the ones of the company. but you also need to help them figure out if these values are actually the ones that are giving them peace. Because many times, and this comes from our parents already. Our parents are not ready to be parents when they have us. They don't do many courses to do that. So we are growing through micro traumas, right? And we think that we like stuff, and because our context is telling us that we like that stuff. And sometimes that context is not going to be in line with our genetics. So we come up, we are grown up, and we have anxieties, we have depressions, we have doing what we think we like. So one of the jobs that we have that is really important for us is trying to figure out what people really like. And sometimes, yes, we need to have a particular option, a particular position filled, but many times people move around in the company. So sometimes start in consulting and then they move to marketing. One starts in the business development, they move to consulting because they didn't know what they really want. And we are helping them figure it out through make them be conscious about what they're doing. If they actually like what they are doing, if they are actually not liking, but they felt like they need to do this because it was their path. It's tough, it's complex, but I think it works.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because, again, as you mentioned, that status quo bias of people like, well, it's working the way it is. And I think there's another aspect of that too, is that leaders that get promoted tend to have, particularly in larger organizations, often have a certain personality profile that may not necessarily align with the happiness. It's the go-getter type A. We just have to put our heads down and do it because I'm going to go and this is how it is. And if I do it that way, everybody else should do it that way. And they have a hard time putting themselves, having that empathy to be able to say, well, yeah, it works for me. That's how I work. But, there's a large portion of our employee base that is not that way. I think that's a big piece of that. Wondering if you've seen any of that as well, or if you have, how do you connect with those types of leaders? And again, there's probably that aspect you said, you're one employee whose goal was just to become friends, right? Wondering if that has anything to do with how you integrate in there.
This is amazing because I feel like this is the main thing of why right now companies are not they are working. Of course, they're working, but they could work better. And how we could stop this. It looks like we have really, really a high percentage of people with anxiety in their jobs and suffering burnouts. And I feel burnouts are a misalignment. I think it's really, really, really complex to have a burnout, despite of how many hours you work, if you are working within your purpose, if your behaviors are aligned with what gives you internal peace and your intrinsic motivation. It's hard to have a burnout because you feel complete. And I'm not saying that you need to work a lot of hours. I'm not saying that, but I think it's hard. And I think the burnouts come when you maybe even work less, but your work is not meaningful for you and you are disaligned. And then you feel like you're not connected, you're not in control, and you get a burnout. So easy answer, we don't allow this type of leadership in the company, like straight up. We don't allow this type of people to grow within the company. They cannot grow. Because they become toxic for the organization. The type of organization that we have, if those leadership start appearing, they will break the whole thing that we are doing. It's really clear that we have to do it that way. So I feel that in order to make this happen, it's a matter of hiring properly, like we were saying before, right? The type of hires that you need to do need to be in line. And then a matter of fostering that feeling of purpose, that feeling of belonging, and making sure that the people that are growing are the ones that are more capable of making others feeling that way. And there is an important aspect, as you were saying, of those people that need to become friends with people in the company, or at least they need to be able to generate enough empathy and trust for people to speak their minds with them. Most likely, it is great if it's a leader in this case, because then the leader can be more in line and more in touch and maneuver faster within the organization, and the market changes. But sometimes, and we are starting to feel it right now that we are already 100 and something, we need people which only job needs to become to build this relationship with the people, not talking about the work, not talking about other things, but building this relationship so they understand the real intrinsic motivations, the real inner peace behaviors, in order to promote in them and to allow them and help them find exactly what they want to do in the organization so they can work there. Because we feel, and this is our hypothesis, that if we help people find what they are happy doing, you don't need to tell them to work hard. You might need to help them to be better at something that they are doing, but they are going to be putting everything that they have into it because they are happy doing it and because they want to grow and get better at what they are doing, because they want to master it, because that's their purpose. I know it sounds a little bit maybe ethereal, but for now it's working. And I hope this can scale to different numbers of thousands, because if we prove that this works this way, I think we have something that is exportable and scalable and that will generate more happiness in the world, which at the end, that is my main goal, actually, with all this.
Well, this is not the last time we're going to have a conversation about this. We're going to come back and we're going to talk more about this when you get to 300 and 500 and 1,000 and 10,000 and 60,000 employees. We'll have to have this conversation again, because we also know that the reality is that the dynamics of human relationships change when we get above like 150 people. When we start losing that line of sight to each other, and those personal relationships start to erode only because there's just so many, the challenges are different. And so we love your optimism, by the way. And
I'm thinking a lot about that, but I haven't yet figured it out. I have a few ideas. We have few ideas of how can we replicate this and how can we structure the company and which type of profiles we need to put where in order for this work being a bigger system. But it's going to be all trial and error, as science is, right? We will see what works and what else.
Yeah, very much so. So I want to actually hear a little bit about your musical tastes. So I'm curious, if you were on a desert island for a year and you could only bring two catalogs of two musical artists' catalogs with you, you can everything that they ever recorded or wrote, but you only get two. Who would those two artists be?
Do you want me to look or to act like I am intellectual, or do you want me to tell you the truth?
Truth. Always the truth.
We want the truth. Is it going to be?
I want the Britney Spears. I want
Taylor Swift.
I want the K-pop band. Come on.
No,
whatever's going to make you happy for a year.
I'm going to look bad because all the people that come, they say so many great artists and classical music and jazz. But if I have to be truthful with you, I have to say one will be Shakira.
Oh, yeah.
It has to be. I think Shakira taught me to love. And if I am the way I am in love and with love, it's thanks to Shakira. It's crazy that people get so caught up in these late songs about Piqué, right? When they broke up, when Shakira has been doing this her whole life, every every time she has broken up with a guy, she has building so many songs about the fact, and it has always been like that. And for me, it's just I've started listening when I was a teenager, and up to now, I don't know, maybe 50 songs of Shakira. I know by all of them.
Shakira is like a life force. She's more than just a human being or just a musician. I feel like she has this presence about her that is so huge. Again, not just in her performance, but in her songwriting. It's amazing.
Yeah. We had an au pair who was from Colombia, who, when my daughter was 4, and she was a huge Shakira fan. And so it was in the house all of the time. And now my daughter became, I love Shakira. I mean, it was good music, right? But man, my daughter at 4 years old knew all of the lyrics to many of those songs and could sing along at the top of her lungs, just going. And it was great. I mean, it just, there is something about her music that it's catchy. It has that, whatever it is that just gets you in a good mood, or, something along that line that I love it. So. And
some of the songs, like, I don't know, at 16-year-old, writing something like Antología, the lyrics is like, come on, how can you feel what you're saying that you're feeling at 16 years old? It's crazy. It is something incredible. Yeah. So for me, that is one.
Okay, number 2, who's going to be your second?
I'm going to be truthful again. It would be, I think, right now, Post Malone. I really,
great.
really love Post Malone. I love his lyrics and his voice. I find it impressive. Then again, I think really young, writing about stuff that are really complex. And for me, it's a lot about that, about the type of lyrics that they write. And the melodies, they really make me feel in sooth. I don't know. It is really, really a cool artist for me. And I feel like he connects really well with my emotions. Same as Shakira. But maybe Post Malone more in a more mature way now.
Well, I think it's interesting that with a behavioral science hat on, a lot of people answer this question sort of seeking variety, right? They're wanting to have two artists that aren't too similar, right? That they want things that sound a little bit different. And Post Malone and Shakira are very different. So you've got very different approaches to that. Were you aware of thinking, I want to make sure that they're different, so that maybe in the morning I might listen to Post Malone, and in the afternoon I might need that pick me up that I get from Shakira?
No, because and by the way, my favorite songs about Shakira are the sad ones, not the.
They are. Oh, interesting.
So
okay.
Underneath Your Clothes, Illegal, No, Don't Bother. Those type of songs are my favorite ones. The ones that sound in the radio, I don't like them that much normally.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for me, it's all about the mellowness. I don't know if you. I'm sure you got in Spotify the Spotify rap at the end of the year, and I got That I'm a Vampire, which are those types of music. I love to suffer when I'm listening to music. I love to feel it.
Oh, I love. So you and me are very similar, Gonzalo, in that idea that lyrics for me are a huge part, right? What are they saying? What are they conveying? The music needs to fit with that, but in the end, I think if there's great lyrics in this, it's just that pulls me in and just keeps me and really, really kind of into the music part of it. And so I think I would probably be the same. I don't use Spotify, so I don't get the rap at the end of the year. My family has it, and so it's under my account, but so I get all the stuff from my kids and everybody else, and it's like, I don't listen to this. What is all this?
They need to fix that.
People, Lil somebody else, because that's what my kids listen to, so, but yeah.
We occasionally talk to our guests about something that Kurt and I are working on, and we call it finding your groove. And does the idea of a groove, does that translate for you? The idea of being in the groove, in having a good flow, having a good, it's like eudaimonia, right? Is kind of like a groove. So does that make sense? I just want to make
100%.
Sure that. Okay.
All right. Now the thing is this isn't what we're looking at is finding your groove for the larger part of your life. So not just like being in flow for 2 hours during work, but like how do you build a life where you find your groove? And so from your perspective, what are the things that help you find your groove, and when do you feel like you're in your groove?
It's gonna sound naive, but I feel I'm almost 24/7 in my groove. Why? Because I work a lot. The person that helps me to be in my groove is my psychologist. I go once a week to my psychologist, and it's more of a spiritual guide, I would say. And what he does is he gives me a lot of movies to watch, a lot of books to read, and through the process of watching and reading, I find myself. And it's not like we talk after that a lot about the pieces that I read or the books or the movies that I watch. It's a matter that the fact that they are talking or treating topics that are so nuclear and so basic to humans make me find my way. So right now I'm reading a book of Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj, which is called I Am That. And it teaches you, or it's conversations with this Sri about his idea of reality and of consciousness and of what is the world and those things. But before it was Taoism or the book that inspired the Jedis, which is Las Enseñanzas de Don Juan of Carlos Castañeda, which is the teachings of Don Juan of Castañeda.
The teachings of John Wine, yeah.
I've read like, I don't know, 5 or 6 of the books that he has written. But then
Journey
again,
to Ixtlan.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And all of those. So those type of books, but also, I don't know, Leibniz, the Theodicy, and things about Christianity, things about all types of religions, philosophies, movies like the first one that comes to my mind, Only Lovers Left Alive, those type of movies, Aliens, that the movie Alien has a lot of interesting stuff as well. So those movies that put you to the understanding of the human being is what keeps me my groove.
Interesting. And so what is it about that helps you find your groove? I mean, what is it about exploring that aspect for you? And this may be way too broad to kind of answer, but what is it that brings that sense of fulfillment for you?
It's really concrete, and this is my philosophy of life, and of course people can be in line or not, but it's what makes me feel good with myself and with the world that surrounds me. And it's a matter that we all work in behavior. We know that behavior is genetics and context, right? And for me, if everything is genetic and context, genetics is completely defined for us. We haven't selected, right? We don't make a decision on our genetics. And we might feel that we do about our context, but I don't think so. Why? We are born and we start having behaviors. They are completely defined by our genetics and by our context that we haven't decided, only our parents, our society. So our first behaviors are completely defined as well. And suddenly we become conscious. We don't know how, but we become conscious. And we have our first conscious action. What is the input that you use for that first behavior? The genetics, which was completely defined, and your context up to then, which was completely defined. So if everything was completely defined for your first conscious decision, your first conscious decision is also defined. It's also determined. So if you take that to the next second, third, end decision, at the end of the day, you haven't decided anything. So in my way of seeing reality, this is deterministic with some randomness, but we have illusion of decision, not real decision. And why does that help me? Well, I stop judging people. I don't think there is a good and bad in the world. I think there is good and bad because we live in a society and it has some norms and we need to decrease uncertainty. So we cannot kill people, we cannot rape people, because that will bring too much uncertainty in your life. So we need to decrease uncertainty. But there is no natural good or bad, and I cannot judge people. I can only judge them within society and for my purposes or the purpose of society. But then suddenly a huge wave comes out of you because it's something different. You are not constantly seeing the negative in others or the goodness in others. You are just seeing people that they are the same as you. They have their context, their genetics, and they act the only way they can act. And then the world becomes a little bit easier. And then there is some other stuff that ends up connecting me with the world, making me feel that I'm the same as you guys and you are the same as me, and make me feel like if you act the way you act is also part of me. So I feel connected with, let's say, an everything. And at the end of the day, it makes me feel calm and relaxed. And the only thing that I want to do in the world is to maximizing what gives me peace and maximizing the behaviors that keep me aligned with myself. And that's how I live.
Fantastic. And as Tim did if we don't always put this in the show, but if we do, for listeners, Tim put up a cover of a book he showed, Determined by Robert Sapolsky, which is talking about, do we have free will or not? And lots of the same things, very much from the genetics component and the contextual pieces and all of that is there, which is a really fascinating concept again. But I loved how you put it into context of society and the fact that not only is it this social norms and everything else, but also then the connectedness that allows you to feel, because you go, yeah, genetics and context, that's what's drove you. It's driving me. We're the same in that matter. And there's that level of like, hey, there's a string and that string goes through all of us. And yeah.
Gonzalo Camiña, thank you so much for being a guest on Behavior Grooves today.
Thank you very much. And I hope I haven't been too open, but it's the only way I know how to be. So thank you very much for having me and listening to this.
Welcome to our grooving session where Tim and I share ideas on what we learned from our discussion with Gonzalo, have a free-flowing conversation, and groove on whatever else comes into our eudaimonic brains. Did I say it right? Did I say it right?
Perfectly.
Oh my gosh. Practice makes perfect. Practice makes... That is like...
It's a great concept, isn't it?
Although I can't pronounce it very well, it is a great freaking concept.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Everybody's got to get on the eudaimonia train. That's... yeah.
Choo-choo.
Yeah.
Choo-choo.
Okay, so where do you want to start this conversation, Kurt?
All right. So eudaimonic, right? We're talking about that. No, let's talk about, I think, one of the key pieces of this, and you and I have talked about this before, is this idea of how does behavioral science fit into organizations? Is it a standalone department? Is it integrated as it's being part of every different department? Is it a combination, a hybrid of those? How does that fit in?
Which also kind of gets to the question of, if I'm interested in applying behavioral science, does my company have to have a behavioral science department in order for me to contribute?
Right. Or if I'm interested in practicing behavioral science, in applying behavioral science inside of an organization, do I have to go back and get a master's degree or a PhD in this? And then do I go to work for a consultancy or a behavioral science department inside of an organization? And I think to all of those questions, Tim, what is your response?
No.
Okay. That was short and simple. I like it.
Yeah. The fact of the matter is, you and I have seen behavioral science get applied in many organizations in a whole variety of different departments without having a dedicated, specialized team. Now we are both believers in dedicated, specialized teams, but you don't need to have that in order to start applying and practicing behavioral science in your discipline.
It is not necessary, right, in order to have that. And I love Gonzalo when he talked, he said, and I quote, "I'm not saying that the field should disappear, but that the field should blend with the other fields that belong in a company." And what he's talking about field there, he's talking about behavioral science. So what he is saying is that it needs to blend. And I would fully agree with that. I do think that there is value. And I think in many organizations that value can be internal or it can be an external consultant,
right,
that has an expertise in behavioral science to come in and to provide guidance and to educate and to put things into context. Because again, as we know, that finding from this research paper isn't just generalizable. You need to be able to understand how it fits and what are some of the other studies that have different elements that might apply here, and how do you take and do that entire lit review to apply insights into what you're doing, and how do you do that effectively from a scientific RCT, or as we like to say in organizations, a pilot, because nobody wants to do
a random
an
control
RCT.
trial,
Yeah. So,
but that comes from scholarship, and that's where the specialized person, the more education, whether it's formal or informal, contributes to scholarship, which contributes to the more nuanced understandings of how to apply these concepts. And I couldn't agree more, Kurt. I think that it's a really important thing to just think about. If you want to do this, just start doing it in your job.
Yeah.
Just if you loved, nudge or predictably irrational or thinking fast and slow, and there was a concept in there that you just loved, or you heard a concept on, God forbid, behavioral grooves that just really set you on fire. Like, this is so cool. I've got to bring this to my office. Just give it a try. Just give it a try. That's the thing. Gonzalo said behavioral science shouldn't be hostage to marketing.
Yes.
So
and it shouldn't be, right?
Yeah, right?
I mean, it shouldn't be hostage to data science, human resource, budgeting, compliance, innovation. It can be used all over the company.
Exactly.
And that, I think, is the really powerful piece that, if anything, listeners should take out of this, is that organizations, whether it be for profit, Fortune 100, Fortune 500, Fortune 1000, whether it be a mid-sized organization, whether it be a small company, whether it be a community-based organization, governmental agency, whether it be parts of the military, whether it be a local nonprofit church, other types of things, all of them, as long as there's human dynamics that are part of the work that they do, can benefit from a behavioral science lens.
Put a pin on that. Absolutely. Okay, let's talk about eudaimonic leadership. Right.
Dun, 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 dun.
So
and I'm not going to say that word again. So that I'm really happy about that.
You kind of nailed it. So this kind of relates to. So it's a Greek word, right? We said in the intro that it comes from like good spirit or happiness, welfare, well-being, those kinds of things. It's really closely associated with arete from Aristotle in this cultivation of human excellence. So it's a desirable state, right?
Yeah.
This is kind of part of it, is that we naturally have this desire to be in this state of well-being and have good spirit, but we don't necessarily bring our best selves to work.
Right. And what is so this was not the first time that, long-time listeners of behavioral grooves have heard that word.
A little trivia
because
thing?
Paul Bloom brought it up in episode 274 and talked about it, right?
Yeah.
And yes, you are absolutely right that we often don't think about leadership in these terms. We don't think about what a good leader is from this idea of good spirit or happiness, right? That's not when we think about good leaders, it's not the visual image that I see. When in fact, maybe we need to shift that view.
I would argue that management, as much as Peter Drucker did in the 70s to really get us to rethink what a manager does, to a large degree, I think that our management ideals are still stuck in the Industrial Revolution.
No, come on, what are you talking about?
Yeah, that companies say, well, I need XYZ done. And so I'm going to hire someone who has a background to do it, and kind of applies people like widgets, basically, to just fit the mold of the job and just do the damn job. I think that's
do the damn job, Tim. I'm asking you to just read these damn words, and you can't even read the damn words. What's going on?
That's right. And I think that Gonzalo is challenging us to take a more forward-looking approach, a modern approach, right?
Right. And I think today we have an opportunity to let people flourish by giving them the flexibility to find different ways to serve the company's mission and vision, kind of in their own unique way. Employees have many different talents that they can bring and they can bear on the work that we do. And leaders need to be okay with that. Now, we have work to get done. We have things that need to accomplish. And I think the fear is if these people aren't doing the things that I'm telling them to do, we are not going to achieve what we need to achieve. And I think that's a false dichotomy. I think it's not an either or. I think it's a blend. It goes back to what we talked about, the blend of behavioral science inside. It doesn't have to be just a behavioral science department that does all the behavioral science work in an organization. You can actually blend it into all of the different departments. It's the same thing here. Is you have shit you have to get done, excuse my language, but you need to also be allowing people the freedom to explore and to bring their full self into their work.
Agreed. We've got a lot of opportunity to grow in that direction. Lastly, we talked about finding your groove with Gonzalo, and it was a really cool thing to have that discussion with him. And I was really grateful to see how authentically and very generously shared his thoughts about it. And I think it was really interesting that he said, I'm always in my groove. Like when I'm working, I'm always in my groove. And you had a particular interesting reaction to that.
Yeah. So I didn't say it in there, but I had to suspend judgment. I had to kind of catch myself because my immediate gut reaction to that was, ugh, that doesn't fit with my idea of what a good
Groove is.
life is, right? Which was your groove, right? Groove is finding that good life, and that whole element that it shouldn't be work centric is where my brain was going, and I had to suspend my judgment on that and allow that maybe my viewpoint on this was my viewpoint.
Yeah.
And that others will have a different groove.
We've done a bunch of different interviews on this, and I remember talking to a guy who is an entrepreneur, and he said he's really only happy when he's working like 60 hours a week on 3 different projects.
Yeah.
Or
the law school, right?
Yeah.
Where it was about being in their groove during law school. He said it was one of the hardest, craziest times, but because of that, he had to set his schedule up, and he got into this like rhythm he talked about of what he needed to do in order to graduate, and it would just it
flowed.
I don't want to use the term flow, but it flowed, right? That idea. Yeah.
Well, I think that it's just important to think about everybody can have their own groove, and that Gonzalo did a great job of talking about his groove, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I think that's a big insight for me. It was a wonderful learning for me and I knew this rationally, but to have it hit so hard in my gut and then have to reflect upon it, right? It's like, why did that leave such a big distaste in my mouth? And then I had to reflect in order to learn. And then hopefully next time somebody comes up with a really crazy groove idea that doesn't match with my preconceived ideas about this, that my cognitive dissonance won't kick in, and I won't be like going, what? That's not there, and discount it. I need to look and live and let live the people, and everybody has their own unique groove, and I state it, but sometimes I don't believe it, and I got to believe it, right?
Yeah, it's better. It's better that way. I'm kind of curious what listeners think. It'd be kind of cool to hear from groovers about what it is that helps them find their groove. Love to hear back.
So again, when we think of groove, is like, what are those things that lead to your best life, right? Not, just money or success or different things, but overall quality of your life. What do you need? What do you find? What's the groove that you need to be in order to have that?
Yeah,
what does that look like?
Yeah, that might be the kind of goals that you set and how you set goals and strive toward them, or it might be the rhythms that you.
Right, might be the mindset that you have to take.
Yeah.
Is it the appreciation of the sunrise and sunsets that we've talked about before? Is it savoring moments of like eating that steak, or just being with your kids and just enjoying that moment for what it is? How do you find your groove? Because again, everybody is a unique groove. So
let us know.
All right, Tim, we could go on and on and on. We could go on about grooves. We could go on about our conversation with Gonzalo, but let's wrap it up.
Okay.
What do you think?
That sounds good. We absolutely want to encourage you to give some thought to your work and think about ways that you could be applying behavioral science in your current job, because whatever job you're doing, you could be applying behavioral science.
Yeah. And bringing in some eudaimonic leadership into that. I said it again. There you go.
Yep.
And here's the thing. If you need ideas, ping us, right? Both Tim and I, this is a passion. Obviously, we've talked about that before. It's a passion for us. We love doing this. We love talking about it. That's why we've been able to have this podcast for 7 years, right? Is it 7?
Well, it's going on 7. Yeah.
I mean, oh my God. So it's it's not from all the money that we're making from it. It's because we love talking about it, and it's an intrinsic reward for us. So you'd be doing us a favor if you ping us and want to talk to us about some of this stuff. So Absolutely. There you go. It's an invitation to anybody out there who's listening. Please, we'd love to talk through ways we could bring behavioral science into your work.
So with that, groovers, we hope that you get inspired by some of Gonzalo's comments and you use them this week to go out and find your groove.